In August 2017, Denmark became the stage for a crime that exceeded the bounds of imagination. At the heart of this tragedy was the Nautilus, the world's largest private submarine, and two central figures: visionary engineer Peter Madsen, whose ambition made him a controversial figure, in my opinion, a lunatic, and journalist Kim Wall, known for exploring unique and dangerous stories. My friends, on that day, renowned journalist Kim Wall boarded the submarine for an exclusive interview. It was to be a groundbreaking report. Her goal was to delve into the mind behind such an audacious creation. However, what began as a promising journalistic endeavor ended as one of the most barbaric crimes in modern history. When the Nautilus set sail, everything appeared normal. Kim took notes as Madsen proudly piloted the submarine. Yet, something dark was about to unfold. As the vessel descended into the depths of Denmark's vast ocean, it also sealed Kim Wall's tragic fate. The truth of that night would not surface immediately, but the beginning of the end came in a grim form. Kim's mutilated torso was discovered days later, floating in Denmark's calm waters. What was supposed to be an interview celebrating an innovative invention turned into an investigation of brutal murder. Kim Wall did not return that night and would never return to her family. Her boyfriend, friends, and loved ones waited anxiously for news that never came. The following morning, the Nautilus surfaced. Peter Madsen was alone and had a ready explanation. He claimed Kim had disembarked safely before the submarine continued its journey. Yet, there was something unconvincing in his demeanor. Shortly thereafter, the Nautilus was found deliberately sunk. For many, it was evident that something was being hidden. Authorities launched an investigation, uncovering details that shocked the nation. Days later, a human torso was found floating in the sea. No arms, no legs, no head. To investigators, the mutilation was not merely an attempt at concealment but a chilling message. Tests confirmed that the remains belonged to Kim Wall. The case grew darker as more parts of Kim's body were later discovered. Each revelation brought shocking details, but no definitive answers about what transpired aboard the submarine that night. Peter Madsen's brilliance now stood in stark contrast to something far more sinister: his capacity for cruelty. Peter Madsen evoked conflicting emotions. To some, he was a visionary, turning impossible dreams into reality. To others, he was a self-obsessed man driven by an insatiable hunger for recognition and power. Born in 1971 in Denmark, Madsen displayed an early restlessness that defied conventional norms. As a young man, he began making bold strides in ambitious projects. At a time when space exploration seemed reserved for major government agencies, Madsen pursued the idea of building a homemade rocket. His goal was simple yet audacious: to prove that ordinary people could reach the stars. But what seemed a daring gesture had another layer. For Madsen, the rocket was less about science and more about ego, a way to etch his name into history. The path to success, however, was not linear. While brilliant, Madsen had a challenging personality. Colleagues and partners often described his attitude as authoritarian and unpredictable. He rejected criticism and frequently alienated those who tried to help him. This combination of genius and unstable temperament made Madsen a fascinating yet dangerous figure. While many admired him, there was an uneasiness even among his closest associates. It was as if his ambition knew no bounds, neither moral nor ethical. When the rocket project hit obstacles, Madsen shifted focus. He sought something grandiose, something that could embody his personality and skills. Thus, the idea of the Nautilus, the world's largest private submarine, was born. Construction began in 2005, with Madsen fully immersing himself in the project. He not only led the build but insisted on being involved in every detail, from design to testing. To him, the Nautilus was more than a submarine. It was a symbol of his genius, a living monument to his ability to challenge the impossible. By 2008, the Nautilus was complete. Danish media was captivated. Interviews, headlines, and documentaries celebrated the achievement as a landmark in innovation. Madsen appeared to have finally attained the recognition he craved. But the glow of success was short-lived. While the Nautilus placed Madsen in the spotlight, it also exposed the fragility of his ego. He used the submarine as a tool for validation, and any criticism or hint of failure seemed to strike at his very core. This obsession with his public image would play a crucial role in the unfolding crime that would shock the world. It was August 10, 2017, a date that began as an ordinary day but ended in a tragedy that would make history. Kim Wall, a Swedish journalist, was excited about the opportunity to interview Peter Madsen, the man behind the famous Nautilus submarine. For her, it was another assignment combining her passion for unique stories and her courage to seek the truth, even in challenging situations. The meeting was scheduled for late afternoon. Kim arrived at the harbor accompanied by her boyfriend, who dropped her off at the dock. Before boarding, she sent a quick message, letting him know it would be a brief interview. "I'll be back in a few hours," she said. The Nautilus, anchored in the distance, looked imposing. Madsen, with his eccentric smile and confident demeanor, greeted her as if showcasing a trophy. As the submarine glided smoothly across the water, Kim began her work, taking notes, recording her questions, and exploring Peter Madsen's peculiar world. For those watching from afar, it was a tranquil scene, a genius proudly sharing his creation with a curious journalist. Yet inside the Nautilus, the atmosphere began to change. There was something odd, something that didn't align with Madsen's pride. His answers were evasive, his gestures calculated. As night fell, Kim had no way of knowing that every passing minute brought her closer to a horrifying end. Hours after boarding, Kim Wall ceased communication. To her boyfriend, her silence began to feel unusual. Concern among her friends, family, and partner grew when the Nautilus, expected to return, simply vanished. The next morning, Madsen was rescued from the sea, but without the submarine. His explanation was simple. The Nautilus had sunk due to a technical fault, but Kim, he claimed, was safe. He alleged she had disembarked the previous night. However, no one had seen or heard from her, and Kim's silence now sounded like an alarm. Danish authorities began their investigation. It was unusual for a submarine of that size to sink so suddenly. Kim's absence only deepened the suspicion. Her boyfriend, frantic with worry, alerted the police, insisting that something was terribly wrong. Kim Wall's disappearance quickly made headlines. What initially seemed to be a technical malfunction aboard the Nautilus transformed into a dark mystery. Meanwhile, Madsen maintained his confident demeanor, seemingly assured that his version of events would dispel suspicions. He did not anticipate that the coming days would bring evidence placing him at the center of one of the most heinous crimes ever recorded. A few days after Kim Wall's disappearance, the sea revealed a disturbing secret. A cyclist, riding near Denmark's coastline, spotted something floating in the water. Initially mistaking it for debris, they soon realized it was a human torso, grotesquely mutilated. Without arms, legs, or a head, the body was in a condition that shocked even the most seasoned investigators. Preliminary examinations revealed puncture wounds in the torso, clear signs of an attempt to ensure it wouldn't float. It was evident this was no accident. Someone had meticulously worked to conceal the crime. The details were brutal. Marks on the body indicated extreme violence, including injuries to the genital area, suggesting more than mere concealment. The mutilation was not only practical but carried a cruel, almost ritualistic significance. For investigators, each discovery reinforced the notion that this was no ordinary crime. Tests confirmed what many feared. The torso belonged to Kim Wall. This official confirmation turned the case into a desperate search for answers, and all clues pointed to Peter Madsen, the last person to see her alive. As investigations deepened, the sea continued to reveal more evidence. Plastic bags containing Kim's limbs and head were discovered at various points along the coast. Each discovery added more shocking details about the crime. The bags were weighted with metal pieces, an obvious attempt to keep them submerged. When Kim's head was finally found, forensic analysis disproved one of Madsen's claims. There was no evidence of trauma caused by a hatch, as he had alleged. Forensic experts concluded that the methodical dismemberment and disposal of the body suggested premeditation. This wasn't an act committed in a moment of panic, but a deliberate, calculated, almost surgical effort. With every new revelation, the gravity of the case intensified. The brutality of the act was not only a physical assault but also a psychological blow to those seeking answers. Peter Madsen, the man once celebrated for his ingenuity, was now the prime suspect in a meticulously planned and monstrous crime. When authorities began questioning Peter Madsen about Kim Wall's disappearance, his responses were vague but confident. From the outset, he maintained that Kim had safely disembarked that night. To him, it was a simple explanation, and the lack of evidence seemed to work in his favor. However, when Kim's remains began to surface, his story quickly lost credibility. Confronted with the evidence, Madsen altered his account. He claimed an accident had occurred. The heavy hatch of the Nautilus had fallen on Kim's head, killing her instantly. In a panic, he said he chose to dismember the body and dispose of it at sea. But, my friends, there were obvious problems with this version. Only a very gullible detective would believe such nonsense. For one, the submarine had been deliberately sunk, suggesting Madsen was trying to hide something. Furthermore, the condition of Kim's remains indicated that the violence wasn't merely a result of panic, but something far darker. Madsen's insistence on labeling the incident an accident became increasingly unconvincing. Investigators found inconsistencies in the details he provided, realizing they were dealing with someone withholding the full truth. Under pressure from mounting evidence and public scrutiny, Madsen revised his story yet again. This time, he claimed that Kim had died of carbon monoxide poisoning inside the submarine while he was in another compartment. According to him, the death was unintentional, a tragic accident caused by a technical failure. This new version raised even more suspicions. Why hadn't Madsen, an experienced engineer, warned Kim of such a danger? And more importantly, why had he chosen to dismember and discard the body instead of reporting the accident to authorities? Amid the investigations, Madsen finally admitted to dismembering the body but continued to deny any direct involvement in Kim's murder. He insisted that he was merely trying to avoid scandal, but his narrative grew increasingly absurd in light of the evidence. None of the versions presented by Peter Madsen seemed plausible. The puncture wounds on Kim Wall's torso and the methodical manner in which her body was dismembered and disposed of indicated careful planning, not an accidental death. Moreover, the sheer brutality of the crime reflected something deeper than a mere moment of panic. Madsen appeared to be playing for time, adjusting his story to match the evidence as it surfaced. However, the police, media, and Danish public were not convinced. The man once celebrated as a genius was now seen as a cold, calculating manipulator whose capacity for cruelty surpassed his creativity. Though pieces of the puzzle were still missing, one thing was clear: Peter Madsen was not the man he had seemed to be. When the Nautilus submarine was found deliberately sunk, a new element of the mystery emerged. During his rescue, Peter Madsen confessed to opening the valves to flood the vessel. His explanation: he claimed he intended to take his own life. Madsen stated that, after the supposed accident involving Kim Wall, guilt and despair led him to attempt suicide. However, even this act was surrounded by contradictions. At the critical moment, he changed his mind and called for help from the Danish Coast Guard. To investigators, and to me as well, this behavior reinforced suspicions that the sinking of the Nautilus was not an impulsive act of remorse but a calculated effort to destroy evidence. The submarine, once a symbol of his brilliance, had now become a silent witness to his crimes. Experts began mapping the Nautilus's route before it sank. The patterns revealed unusual movements, as if Madsen was trying to buy time or carefully choose locations to discard evidence. However, his plan was not watertight, literally. A few days after Madsen's rescue, authorities managed to raise the Nautilus from the seabed. As the submarine was hauled out of the water, the world's eyes were fixed on it. What would investigators find inside? Could this vessel, where Kim Wall spent her final moments, reveal the truth? Inside the submarine, investigators found no trace of Kim's body but discovered evidence that contradicted Madsen's accounts. Bloodstains matching Kim's DNA were identified within the Nautilus. Additionally, tools that could have been used to dismember her body were recovered, strongly suggesting that the crime had occurred on board. The Nautilus, once a testament to Madsen's ingenuity, had now become a crime scene. Every bolt and compartment seemed to tell a story that Madsen desperately wanted to hide. He had built the machine as an extension of his ego, but it had become the key to his downfall. With the submarine recovered and evidence piling up, Peter Madsen found himself increasingly cornered. The man who had sunk his pride along with the Nautilus was now facing the inescapable truth of his actions. When the case went to trial, all of Denmark was watching. Peter Madsen's trial was not only about justice for Kim Wall, but also about uncovering what had happened aboard the Nautilus that night. The charges against Madsen were severe and shocking. Prosecutors presented evidence that the crime had been premeditated and executed with chilling precision. The injuries to Kim's body, combined with the bloodstains found in the submarine, supported the theory that Madsen had acted with sadistic intent. Madsen, however, continued to deny deliberate murder. He maintained that the entire ordeal was an unfortunate accident and that the dismemberment of Kim's body was his way of dealing with the situation. Yet, the evidence told a vastly different story. The puncture wounds, the careful dismemberment, and the methods used to dispose of the body all pointed to a meticulously planned crime. The court heard from criminal behavior experts, who described Madsen as a narcissist with potential inclinations towards sexual violence and sadism. These testimonies, combined with forensic evidence, painted a horrifying picture of a man whose brilliance was overshadowed by his capacity for cruelty. The investigations and trial revealed that Peter Madsen harbored violent tendencies and macabre fantasies. The murder appeared premeditated, driven by a combination of sadistic impulses and a desire for total control over his victim. In April 2018, Peter Madsen was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of Kim Wall. The verdict brought a mixture of relief and sorrow. For Kim's family, the pain of losing her was irreplaceable, but the sentence offered a measure of justice. Denmark, a nation known for its peaceful reputation, was deeply scarred by the crime. The case sparked widespread debate about safety, gender-based violence, and the fine line between genius and malevolence. Madsen became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how unchecked ambition and ego can lead to disaster. His fall from celebrated inventor to convicted murderer was both meteoric and tragic. As Madsen began serving his sentence, Kim Wall's legacy endured. Her work as a journalist, focused on telling human stories from challenging places, was celebrated as a testament to her courage and dedication. After the trial, the Nautilus remained central to the case. Once a symbol of brilliance and innovation, it was now regarded as a grim reminder of a heinous crime. Abandoned on police property in Copenhagen, the Nautilus seemed to carry the weight of the tragedy, a steel structure that echoed the events of that fateful night. Debate ensued about what to do with the submarine. Some suggested dismantling and destroying it to sever its connection to the crime. Others believed it should be preserved as evidence in a criminal investigation, serving as a reminder of the dark side of human ambition. In the end, the Nautilus remained an unwanted relic, a haunting symbol of the fine line between the extraordinary and the monstrous. The case of Peter Madsen and Kim Wall left lasting marks and deep reflections. I often wonder, how could someone admired for their brilliance commit such a brutal act? What drives a brilliant mind to cross the boundaries of morality? To me, this crime was a stark reminder that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places. Madsen, with his image as a visionary, used his genius as a mask to conceal his darkest tendencies. On the other hand, Kim Wall's legacy shone even brighter after her death. Her bravery as a journalist and her commitment to the truth inspired countless tributes. Scholarships were established in her name to support young journalists, ensuring her pursuit of human stories lived on through others. While the full mystery of what transpired inside the Nautilus may never be uncovered, the story remains both a warning and a tribute. A warning about the perils of blind idolization and a tribute to the memory of a woman who dared to explore the unknown. If you were intrigued by the case of the Nautilus, let us know in the comments what struck you the most. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends who love impactful stories like this one. Speaking of mysteries at sea, I've prepared another incredible video for you to watch. It's on the screen now. I'll leave you with that, and see you in the next video about stories of the sea.